In the next edition of It's About Money, my guests will be Larry Moss and Kelly Chittle. We'll be talking about the fine art of folding air. So be sure to join us in It's About Money. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nanette Nokan and thank you for joining us. We have an exciting program for you and my guests are Larry Moss and Kelly Chittle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I love your art, Airigami it's called, right?
Correct.
Did you coin that term or is that something that's out there?
I did. A friend of mine and I were sitting around one day talking about how what we made with balloons was different from what other people did, and it just needed a different word. You have balloon twisters out there that call themselves twisters, and we didn't really want to be known for twisting. We wanted to be known for creating art. So we had to find a way to describe it.
So you started the business at the same time, is that right? Or did you start it and you joined together? What's the history of that?
I started it years ago. It sort of evolved from my roots as a street magician in New York. It's just taken on new forms and changed over time. And so yeah, I've been doing it now for about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And then a few years back during Balloon Manor, I stumbled across this project online and was just surprised that there was this amazing community art project that benefited charity. And how come I hadn't heard about it? Where are the posters? I'm not seeing them around town. So I sent Larry a note and I said, this looks like an amazing project and I think you need my help. I'm going to help you, kind of whether you like it or not.
Yeah, the way I remember it was the note basically said, I love everything you've done with the project. I love your art, but your graphics suck.
Oh,
it was much nicer than that, but it was direct.
That's great. In our background here, we've got the girl with the pearl earrings.
Yes, our reimagining of Vermeer's work.
So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, it's a bunch of balloons put together. Big ones, little ones.
One way to put it.
I mean, that's not it's a crude way of saying it, but it's absolutely beautiful.
We found, a number of years ago, I got fed up with people looking at the things that I created and said, the stuff you do, it's like art.
Like art, like what I just said.
Yeah. And so I decided, because I had been spending years working on developing the skills and developing my style, and I got so fed up with hearing that it was like art that I finally said, if I start recreating the things that people already know of as art, maybe they'll realize that what I'm doing actually is art. So I spent a little time experimenting and, with some of the great masters and rethinking how I would apply them because, one of the things that I did as an artist always to learn how to get to the next step was to study the masters anyway. So it was just kind of part of a learning thing for me, and it became really popular. So we've got a whole series of these now.
Oh, it's great. I love the Mona Lisa. Sorry, I was just kidding about balloons putting. It's absolutely beautiful. It's great. It must take a lot of time and effort to do that. I mean,
it's interesting trying to get the work. When you're building a typical sculpture, it's usually seen from all sides. So you're really focused on making the piece look beautiful in the round, and it's sort of easier and harder when you're doing these pieces because Larry will photograph a sculpture after it's been created. So sometimes what you've built in 3D doesn't necessarily read as well two-dimensionally. So you kind of have to adjust the way you're designing things so that it reads well on the camera and then finally on the
yeah, so it gives it depth, yeah.
Yeah, it's also been an interesting process going from installation works where everybody that comes and sees it at a different stage. So they might see us creating it, highlighting a product, we're making it, and the sponsors want certain things to be seen. So there's the process as you build it, and then the finished look of it, and then over time it fades to, it shrinks. Whereas these 2D pieces that we're doing for canvas, it has to look. It's going to stay that way forever. So the things that you focus on when creating them are very different.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's wonderful that you're doing that because otherwise, like you said, the balloons just shrink over time because air.
But it's kind of a fun thing, though, to have this sort of temporary artwork. It kind of forces the viewer to have to look at it right then and there
and
because
to remember it.
Yeah, because it's going to disappear.
No, you are unique in what you do. I mean, there's not that many people in the world that do this, right? I mean, it's
in the grand scheme of things, you're talking about a handful of people that work with balloons as a medium to begin with, and then you look at people that do either the very large things that we do or
The illustration
the
work.
illustrations.
And I don't think there's anybody else doing
Yeah,
it.
you're down to, you can
Us.
count them on one hand.
Right.
There are a couple of people experimenting with it and all, but as far as this style and the illustration work, yeah, I think it's us.
So tell me about you. You've traveled around the world and done installations around the world. What are some of the most memorable and unique things you've done?
Oh, well, the soccer players was something that we had done in Belgium. We set a world record, over 40,000 balloons, non-round balloons all twisted together, no wire framing, anything like that to construct the piece. And I had a crew of 45 artists from around the world that came to join me in the process. So that was before we had met. I was working with a friend, Royal Sorrell, my co-designer. And that still is one that people talk about more than anything else. Balloon Manor, how Kelly and I started working together. A 100,000 balloon, 10,000 square foot haunted house. It would take a half hour to tour it. It was more than just a sculpture. This is an interactive experience.
You could actually go in the 100.
Everybody went in and took tours of it. And
We had a soundtrack. We worked with local artists, engineers. We even had a NASA engineer.
Yeah.
But Ward Hartenstein, who's a musician from Rochester,
wrote the score for it.
every year was a different score.
So this was truly an event that brought thousands of people, was seen internationally.
Right. Now you're in the Guinness Book World of Record for.
Currently, we were.
Oh, okay.
Nobody's beaten the record, but our record seems to have vanished. I don't quite understand how that works, but we are in the current edition of Ripley's Believe It or Not, and have been for
Yay.
several years. And we try to do things that stand out. I hate thinking of it as setting a record. It's more, to me, doing something unusual.
Sure.
Well, my favorite part of that piece too is the final image of it. If you look next to the soccer ball, like first, like people will come to the studio and they'll see the image, like, oh, that's great, and they don't have no concept of the scale of it, and then they see Larry and Royal standing next to the soccer ball, and they're like, oh my goodness. So that's really worth the trip right there.
That's great to calibrate the skill. So now most parents don't encourage their children to be artists. Now you two are both artists.
And we have enough kids to fit that parent role.
Yes.
We love encouraging kids to be creative and try things. And, my parents certainly encouraged me to play. They didn't encourage me to do this for a living. I remember initially, when I was working as a street performer, it's a joke in the family now because my mom used to always refer to me as her son, the beggar, because I was out on street corners. But I paid college tuition working street corners as a magician and balloon artist. If you have a passion about anything, even as ridiculous as art, well, no, I mean, again, that image of, most parents wouldn't encourage this. So it might seem really out there to say to your kids, do whatever you feel like. We tell them that, and then we say, well, as long as it fits in this mold.
As long as you can feed yourself with it.
Right.
But so as an artist, it took a little bit to realize that, I really could make a living creating art, but we certainly encourage it now because it works for us.
Sure, that's great. Now you do other types of art because the installations are sort of limited in that they're grand scale, so you'd probably be invited by a museum or corporation or.
Well, sometimes we can make smaller scale installations. Like if there was, say you were having a public event and you wanted to have, either give a gift to the community, like we've done. There was the wagon for the museum.
Right,
that was a museum.
The
but it
Genesee
was
Country Museum. We did a giant wagon. Everybody got their pictures taken with the wagon. Store windows. It's a good way to highlight something new. Product releases. Corporate events, and then our own events like Balloon Manor.
I think the important thing too is that because it is somewhat unusual, people have probably seen someone making a dog, that's the typical experience that someone has, and then when they see you building something larger scale with multiple balloons with the colors and the people are just completely sucked into watching what's going on. So even the finished piece is beautiful and fun to look at and still draws amazement, but it always blows my mind how much enjoyment is had by the audience getting to watch us create something. And I think part of that's just getting the chance to see someone make something right there in front of you.
Sure, sure. The treat is watching the development.
And then coming back later in the day. And so, it works fantastic at trade shows because, you want people coming back to your booth. So suddenly we have a reason for people to come and hang out. So it works out really well.
That's great.
But you were talking about the different types of art. So yeah, like doing the 2D stuff we were talking about, that was a whole new thing so things could last. And we've been focusing a lot more recently on the illustration stuff, so we don't have to be in a museum. We don't have to be in a convention center to be creating. Sure. So, everything from illustrated kids books through illustrated ads. We just completed something for a major ad campaign that hopefully will show up. It's going to show up in Asia. Hopefully it'll make it here later. But
and that was a fun week because the the studio was it was kind of a mass production week where we had to make a lot of pieces for this Rush campaign, and there were these giant balloon bodies.
As soon as body parts everywhere.
As soon as the shot was taken, we just tossed them into a pile. So at the end of the week, we had this pile of balloon bodies filling the studio, which was hysterical.
So then you've ventured into other ways to make a living being artist. It's tough being an artist. The work is not like a regular paycheck.
No.
Oh, what's that like?
So you have to find ways to market yourself. The show is about money, and I'm trying to get people to think about other ways to make money rather than the traditional way of just going to a building, and then collecting a paycheck every week or every other week. So I think it's marvelous that the two of you have joined forces in doing it. But then you have to come up, like you said earlier, you have to find ways to improve what you're doing and find other ways. So you've done a book. This one is Artist Eyes, and I actually have this at my home, which I think is cool. So there's a book that you've done together. What other things have you done to try to become?
There's another book that we're working on right now, and the illustration stuff is fantastic. So we have, greeting cards are great. Lots of fun. They're different, and so we have instructional books and kits, and
T-shirts. We have these images, and these images are our. We can apply them to whatever appropriate. So if it's an ad, or if it's a note card, or if it's a T-shirt, we have them available to create with. We were just toying with the idea earlier of, making some children's flatware, some fun, early melamine plates.
Oh, I see that you put the image on there.
We've also, in a few cases, been able to license images to others to use.
Okay.
So editorial pieces or.
And do you do this yourselves, or do you have somebody else helping you find ways?
That's another one of the interesting things about being an independent art studio, is that we don't have a huge staff, a huge crew. We can always call on a big crew when we do the really big installations, but for the most part it's us. So from beginning to end, the design, the illustrations leading up to our sketches, the photography,
the design,
it's all in house. We'll send it out for the final production, but otherwise we're.
So you both learned different ways to. The computer. When you said that his website wasn't the best.
Well, no, actually,
originally,
right
now it's nice, but
it's. I love the website. We need to you constantly, the shoemaker's children go with holes in their shoes. Being artists, but being artists with many talents, it comes in handy when, okay, the website needs to be updated. Well, we can handle that in-house. But if we're working on the website, then we're not working on creating images, or we're doing this. So, building a business, I think for anybody, you get to a certain point, you're like, wow, I'm doing everything, and this is great. And then
you have to learn to let control go.
Yeah, and get some sleep in there. So it's building the business to get more income so that we can farm out more of the work that we're doing, even in-house, because we'd love to, I would, in 10 years, 20 years, I could see us with, like a Koons-sized studio.
Yeah, in our dream world, we've talked about that again, with the business thing, it's like, do you want to be totally in control, or do you want those investors that are going to back it and tell you what they want to see? But I think we've reached the point now that we're comfortable enough with what we can produce, and we've gotten better at the directing of other people, and that we would love to see things grow and get to that point that we could have more people working with us.
Sure. I mean, if you're the talent, you just can hire. For me as a business owner, is always ask the question, am I doing something that requires my skills, requires my
Exactly.
expertise? And if it doesn't, how much will it cost me to hire somebody to do it? And what's the return on my investment for it? So,
And how much is it
Right.
costing me doing this now? Because we really do have, a limited time in the studio because we want to be with our family.
so now, would you say that you are the father of folding fine art? No, fine air, I should say.
The fine art of folding air.
Yeah, there you go, fine art of folding air.
There were certainly people doing this before me that I learned from. I mean, just names: Ralph Dewey, Marvin Hardy, two of my mentors on the balloon side of things. I've taken it an entirely different direction, and then joining with Kelly, being able to blend our different skills with experience in different media has certainly taken it in a way that nobody has before. So as far as Airigami goes, yeah, that's something that we've created. Balloons, though, the 1930s was about when people started twisting balloons in this country. Yeah, there are references going back to balloons, not balloon animals, but yeah, balloons started showing up 100 years before that too, that got interesting. Animal bladders were used.
Okay.
Thankfully, we've moved up to late
Yes,
night.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break, and I thank you. My guests are Larry Moss and Kelly Chittle, and we'll be right back.
Things can come and go quickly these days, but one thing has been sure and steady, and if you haven't noticed, it's been on the air for over 10 years now. Nanette Nokin has been a Rochester Public Access television fixture. With her highly accredited financial background, viewers are sure to learn some tips of the trade. Her show, It's About Money, has been educating, informing, entertaining, and inspiring viewers since 1996. She and her guests have been giving valuable advice on how to invest, spend, and save your hard-earned money. And who's not interested in money? So tune into your public access station for a new monthly episode of It's About Money for Rochester's finest in finance.
And we're back. My guests are Larry Moss and Kelly Chittle, and we're talking about the fine art of folding air. I got that right. Well, thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it. Now, talk about how you use technology as a way to enhance your business.
Well, there's two sides of it. There's from the creative side and the marketing and promotion. On the creative side, having computers and being able to work digitally with images that we've finished, like when working on the 2D stuff, we shoot it as perfectly as we can, but we might want to adjust for final production.
Or add in some extra pieces like
Right, so some of our illustrated pieces, actually, and he puffed, was a fun one. Because we couldn't, in the space that we had to work, we couldn't produce the entire scene. So we were able to shoot it in pieces. So having really, really nice, affordable cameras these days certainly helps.
And it's also kind of nice because with the new camera we have, we can get a full screen preview on the laptop. So it makes it's fun to compose in camera. So
Sure.
it's just a really interesting way to work.
You can move some of the items in the image.
Move the rat over that one over like 2 inches. And then that way, you don't have to go in and do it later.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
And then on the other end of it, there's the whole social media thing, which is kind of how our work has gotten around the world. And we've been able to play on that and create, not only getting it out there, but getting direct feedback. Bloggers writing about what we do and people tweeting about the work. People tweet and we respond as quickly as we can, to let them know that we saw their comments. And it's interesting. There have been a couple of times where just for fun, not we had time to play, we've tweeted things like, hey, we're working on something right now. What would you like to see? And it's really funny to see how many people respond really quickly.
Because we have a camera set up in the studio so that it takes a shot of our working area every 2 minutes or so.
Oh, cool.
So if we're in the studio, you can see us working, and we'll get people that are watching and going, "Hey, can you do this now?" And wave to me.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, the whole social media environment has been a fun playground.
Sure, sure. Basically, your studio goes to the homes of the people who are viewing it or wherever they might be. Now, you guys work and live together 24/7. How does that work? I mean, artists generally have a lot more emotions or whatever. I mean, does that, how do you balance all that out?
That was like the farthest thing.
Yeah, we have so much fun working together. We're just creating all the time,
It's
and it
not
never
really
feels
work.
like work.
Oh, fantastic.
And we have a studio, and as much as we can, we keep work in the studio. But at the same time, if we have to do something at home because we have a deadline to finish, so we'll take out what we're working on, and the kids will be in the craft room working on another craft project. So it's not really like we're working. Everybody in the house is making something.
And actually, we
I
have
see.
like 4 little critics. How about you make that a little bit taller? Which is a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. I suppose then you know where each other's coming from. You're working on the same project, and that's good. Now, you also do some other work besides, because I first heard about you through design work that you do for websites and so on.
I started off, classically trained graphic designer, doing design and illustration work. I still do lots of work around town. The Arts and Cultural Council logo is mine, and I did the season artwork for Jiva a few years back. There was when they did Sweeney Todd, and when you see the Christmas Story little bunny boy show up, that was mine too.
Cool.
And actually, it was funny because when we first started working together, one of the things he wanted was a logo.
Yeah, and she said to me, find me logos that you like as examples, and I said, well, here's one that I really like, the Arts Council logo, just totally randomly. And she said, oh, good, I can do that. In fact, I did.
And it was funny too because I asked him, I'm like, just give me an idea of what you're looking to convey, because my whole drive is to have someone be able to look at something and get it, as soon as they look at it. And so, just looking kind of offhandedly, he says, can you make me something that shows folding air? Yes, I can do that. And so I love how the logo looks kind of like an origami instruction, with the folding, and that's where that came from.
Oh, that's great. I think it's great that you have different skills to bring together and then
Yeah,
work
but these
together.
days, we've both kind of left the other worlds that we were in. So the graphic design and the computer side that I had done before, and the focus is really now on just Airigami.
I see, making that work, and the kids too are part of it, I take it.
Oh yeah.
They're in some of the pictures.
Oh, okay.
They
all right.
modeled for us.
So tell me about the pictures, like a collage that you put together, and the kids are in it, right?
In some ways, like there's the image of our daughter Chloe. She's in the 3 Little Bears. She's Goldilocks, and so she's eating porridge. So that we actually built a 3-dimensional set out of the balloons, and then at the end of the school day, ran home, grabbed her, got her set up behind the table there, and with the spoon, and she modeled for us, and then ran home, got dinner on the table.
But that ties in with the technology piece again too. Like, one of the things that I had said early on when I started doing the 2D pieces was I said if I'm going to work that's a different medium, and I want to do something that can't be done with just the balloons. If I'm going to photograph it, let me take it to an extreme. Let me do things that would otherwise be impossible. So when you look at Wyatt, the second oldest, playing the part of Jack in the Beanstalk, we put him on the beanstalk, and when you look at it, it looks like an absolutely impossible image, and that's because it is. That he's standing on this balloon beanstalk. So we shot the beanstalk exactly, we shot Wyatt exactly, and then merged them. And without the digital capability, that
It would have been
couldn't
hard to balance him on the balloon.
Yeah.
and that's such a great picture in my mind, because it's a fairy tale, it's fantasy, it's everything about it. It's light and airy and impossible, and we could do it.
I think it's cool. You both look like you're having fun doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what it's
Yes.
about.
Yeah. Now, would you recommend being artist as a career? I mean, your art form is very different than many other people, and it's nice and unique. Would you?
I would definitely. I think, one of the greatest assets, anyone has is their ability to make something. And, the difficult part is being able to market and sell and package that something that you create. And I would love to see more sort of business-oriented people working with artists to help them, it's basically like you've got a gold mine. Or we have a gold mine, and we have lots of gold in there, but we've got a pickaxe and our backs, versus someone that could come and be like, I can help you out here, and we can both profit, because I think that works out really well when we can work together with somebody else.
Sure. Yeah. Just take the corporate side, and then
Yeah.
we may not have the same kind of artistic talents, and then
Well, right. We are so focused on creating what we think looks great that sometimes you need that other person to tap you on the shoulder and go, but how are you going to sell that? What's the commercial
or
piece?
They say, I know how to sell that. That's
right,
the person we want.
I know how to sell that. Right. That is the person we want. We
Yeah.
haven't found that person yet that's...
So if you know how to sell us.
So I think it's great, though, that the two of you can, that you make a living doing it, that it's great that you could. And what advice would you give to others who might be thinking about, going into or pursuing their passion or their talent in art?
I think the greatest thing that I wish somebody had said to me years ago, the focus is always on, well, you're an artist, you need to make the best art possible, which is true. You don't want to put out a product that isn't good. But I wish somebody had said to me, you're also going to be running a business. Take a business class. Learn what it means to run a business and realize that, especially until you get successful and are really generating that income, your focus, you're going to spend 80% of your time running the business and not creating art. And so I think that would be my greatest advice. If you're thinking about it now, take at least one business class and get an understanding of what you're stepping into.
Sure.
I was going to say, I think also take a step back and realize how much it costs you to create something before you decide to sell it. Because a lot of times people really undervalue the pieces that they've created and feel that just because the person down the street is making something similar and selling it for $5, that I need to compete with them and sell it for less. And I think in the case of artwork, there's a lot of variability. If it costs you $10 for the hour to have the studio time, or to fire the kiln, or to buy your consumables, you can't charge less than what it's costing you to make it.
Sure.
At
Giving it
least.
away.
Yeah, you're giving it away, and you need to eat.
Sure. Absolutely. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I just admire how you as a couple have continued to enjoy doing what you're doing. You get your kids in the process. I love that when you talk about making pancakes and how artsy the pancakes are. The poor
Right,
kids.
because I believe, you hear these stories, the romance of the starving artist, and frankly, I do not believe artists need to starve. So when we're not working with balloons and photography and illustration, we make pancakes.
I think that's cool.
We'll have to make sure that they've got a pancake image, because these actually, if there's any local businesses or nonprofits around town that want to do a pancake breakfast and want to have some guest artists come in and create some fancy pancakes, we'd gladly
We're up for
offer
that
our
too.
services.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Larry Moss and Kelly Chittle, for our time. It went by so quickly. Just really interesting art, and people ought to check your website and see how you do your art form. And best wishes to both of you.
Do we want to invite everyone to?
Oh, First Friday is in Rochester. Go there.
Yeah,
Yes.
first Friday, the first Friday of every month is the big gallery night in Rochester, and lots of galleries are open, and we're among those.
Very good. That's great. Thank you very much. And thanks our guests for joining us. I'm Nanette Nokan. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have any questions for It's About Money, please email Nanette at nnocon@aol.com. This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.